We are taking our cue from our production crews. This event is being live streamed on cbcsports.ca as well as FINA TV. Just about 4 minutes away from first dive. It's always our pleasure to introduce our officiating panel for these competitions. Your referee for this event, Aaron Barrett. Your assistant referee, Carol McPherson. Judge number 1 is Ainsley Oliver. Judge number 2, Victoria Tomlinson. Judge 3, Cam McLean. Judge 4, Steve Power. Judge number 5, Stuart Graymore. Judge number 6, Donna O'Brien. Judge 7, Barb Bush. Judge number 8, Kim Fain. Judge 9, Sarah Toth. Judge 10, Ugo Parise. And Judge number 11, Peter Rusenes. You're going to see our start list coming up on our broadcast stream. And getting ready for our official FINA countdown video.
Welcome inside the MNP Community and Sports Center in beautiful Calgary, Alberta, as day 1 of the finals continue from the Canada Cup. Mitch Peacock along with Courtney Hattie as we get a look at what you can expect today in terms of the lineup for the women's 3-meter synchronized final. There are the 6 teams competing, including 2 from the host nation, joined by competitors from Australia, the United States, Great Britain, and Brazil. And Courtney, as we look at the mix of competitors here, this has FINA Grand Prix written all over it. These are young, talented athletes looking for experience on the international level, and they get it here in this great environment with a good crowd on hand.
I'm very excited for this. We have 2 Canadian teams that we've never seen do synchro together, and a lot of familiar names from other Grand Prix circuits and international events. Haven't seen women's synchro in quite some time, so I'm really excited.
We talk about up-and-comers, but there's an experienced veteran of the scene, and Pamela Ware, who was 4th in Rio in the synchronized with Jenna Bell, who now has stepped aside from the sport and left a great legacy behind her. But important to have those veterans on the scene, too, to help the young athletes on the way up.
Yeah, it's great to have Pam, who's now bringing Amy into the scene and showing her the ropes and what she knows and learned with and from Jen.
We saw the lineup a moment ago. Kate Rosman and Alicia Colloy of Australia will get it all started off in just a moment. A reminder that in these synchronized events, the first couple of rounds are compulsory and a degree of difficulty of 2.0. Then after that, the final 3 rounds is where you'll see the degree of difficulty pick up and the variety of dives change a little bit, and often where you see the separation as well in the field as we work our way towards a final result. Moments away from the opening dive of this women's 3-meter synchronized finals. It will begin with the Australian duo of Kate Rosman and Alicia Colloy, both 20 years of age. For FINA Grand Prix medals for Coloy along the way. Her most recent, the silver and 3-meter synchro event in Spain a couple of years ago. 3 of her 4 medals are silver. She'd like to bump that up a category if she can and attain her first gold medal. Won't be easy in this field. Get it started with the forward 1.5 somersault in the pike position.
Forward 1.5 somersault, pike position.
Third and last of the synchronized events on day 1.
That was a really nice way to start the event. Their synchronization on the board was flawless. They had excellent board work and movement, meaning that there was no noises when they jumped off the board. They were very patient. Really nice synchronization and really nice entries.
So a good start for Coloy and Rosman on Australia. The Australians on a long road trip here for the training camp coming up in Toronto before they make their way to Hungary for the World Championship.
About a month away from home.
It's a long time, but they've been waiting a long time.
Yeah.
Over a couple of years since they've had, outside the Olympics, a chance to leave Australia. So a positive looking start for Rosman and Coloy. And they're having a laugh after their opening effort of 5 here in the 3-meter synchro finals. Lots of smiles around the pool this week. Everybody excited to be out and at it again. And look at the execution numbers, some 8s. And all the way to 8.5 on synchronization. So a positive start there. And on to the Americans, Lily Whitty and Bailey Sturgill. And we've got a 16-year-old in Sturgill, a 17-year-old in Whitty. And these two finished 3rd in this competition at the U.S. Nationals.
There are a lot of divers in the United States, so that's really impressive, especially for how young they are.
They get it started with the forward 1.5 pike position.
Again, really nice board work from the two. A bit of an interesting come out of the 1.5 for Bailey. Her arms did that extra little bit of rounding, just giving her that bit of splash.
She's getting a chance to see that now.
The technology is incredible. You get to watch your whole dive in slow motion if you
Feedback
choose.
is instant. Yeah, you can see that they're curious when they come over sometimes because they know something was just a little bit off, but what was it? And they get that feedback right away, can tuck that away, and then that's important to, 1, have the feedback, but then 2, be able to move on, right? And put the next one in your focus.
That is a really big part of diving, and a lot of other sports, just putting that behind you, moving on.
And we move on to Pamela Ware and Amy Wilson. Excited to compete in Canada, of course, but in particular for Amy, her hometown here of Calgary.
Starting with the inward dive pike. This is a really interesting pair because Pamela trains out of Montreal and Amy has been in Texas for the last few years, training at school. So this is really fresh for them too, but I think they're gonna have fun.
Amy making a transfer from LSU over to Texas A&M. She says it sparked her career. And you know, so many times these athletes, they start so young, and it's easy for it to turn into a grind, almost like a job. And maybe sometimes that change of scenery, maybe a different voice, can give you some energy, can give you a boost. And she seems to be inspired again here as the cycle begins towards Paris.
Yeah, and that's what we want to see. She's got a great coach and coaches down at Texas A&M.
You'd know about that?
I would know a little bit about that. Jay LaRue is an incredible coach, and they're always cycling out the grad assistants, which are usually athletes there, so it's a really great program.
Forward-thinking program helping the athletes and transition to life in the sport, perhaps, as we move along and get ourselves ready for our 3rd, make that 4th combination. Maya Cuddy and Callie Eaglestone representing Great Britain.
Inward dive pike. Really nice from both of them.
Fusion awards for diver A.
They have beautiful technique, really straight arms, tight toes. That really helps perfect the dive. They know how to get a clean entry, starting off the event strong. Their coach, Julian.
All adds up to a nice start for the team from Great Britain.
Juniors, they're quite young.
Callie Eaglestone just 18, and she's been representing Great Britain since 2016 internationally. Remarkable. It started that young. Well, speaking of young, the youngster on the Brazilian delegation before us now, and Ana Santos, along with the veteran Luana Lira. Forward dive to begin.
That was great synchronization. Slightly different hurdles, but coming together right for the takeoff. Perfectly in sync through the whole dive.
Luana Lira representing Brazil at World Championships in 2015, 17, and 19, set to go again. Very impressive, there she is. Nice resume and a nice start here, 46.20. The synchronization, as you pointed out, outstanding. All right, 6 teams in the competition. This is the 6th of them, the 2nd of the Canadian teams to go. Mia Vallée and Margot Erlam, who's already been working today, got herself a gold medal.
Yes.
Along with Bryden Hattie in the mixed synchro.
Lots of diving for Margot today. Really beautiful. And you know, with Jennifer Bell retiring, we're looking for that new 3-meter synchro pair. Mia, who dives in Miami, and Margot, who dives in Saskatoon. So also just practicing, you know, for the first time this week and really showing off they could be a really nice pair.
Impressive to see the representation on this Canadian team across the country, really, from Victoria to out east. And you see a lot of range and age as well. It's a good time for Canadian diving.
And we're really fortunate that we're hosting this Grand Prix. It gives us the ability to bring a few more athletes, which gives us the opportunity to then pair them together in these events.
And look at that, 50.40 to open up for Erlam and Vallée. Vallée was impressive in qualifying in the women's 3-meter. She shows that form is continuing here in the synchro final.
And both Mia and Margot will be going to Worlds in Budapest and Commonwealth Games in England.
Big summer ahead for so many of these competitors as a new cycle begins after Tokyo. We begin round number 2, the 2nd of the compulsory dives. Rosman and Colloy of Australia. Reverse dive in the pike position.
Board work is just incredible. On our end, it's so quiet. They're very patient with the diving board. That is very critical in diving.
And then when you say patient with the diving board, to the layperson who hasn't competed, what does that mean?
Well, it means when you're walking on the board and you're pressing it, it can be very easy to want to get off of it quickly. But when you take your time and you wait, you're actually able to catch what the board is giving you and get that higher jump off the board.
So that's why it's a little bit quieter when you see execution like that. And it's 43-20 for the Aussie duo. Brings us to Whitty and Sturgill. Lily Whitty entering her senior year of high school in Dexter, Michigan. Forward 1.5.
One twist. The synchronization in throughout that whole dive, absolutely perfect. I love that we get to see that in slow motion. You get to see how perfect they did it together. A really great start for Australia and USA.
Yeah, they're kind of taking it in stride, Whitty and Sturgill, but that's a nice score, 91-20. Look at the synchronization, and there, finally a smile as they go from work mode to transitioning over to their prep for the next one. Ware and Wilson, second after the opening round. Reverse dive pike.
excellent. Very nicely executed, especially, I mean, they've rarely practiced together, so their hurdle is very in sync, their height off the board in sync, their come-outs, and their entry into the water.
Two-time all-conference second team for Amy Wilson, wrapping up her collegiate career. Execution as high as 7.5, and synchronization, you see, all the way up to 8.5. 11 judges in the synchronized competition. 3 focused on each diver, 5 evaluate synchronization. On to Cuddy and Eaglestone, forward 1.5 pike position.
A really nice front 1.5. I mean, the most important part of the synchronized events is the synchronization, and so far we've seen some really nice stuff.
That's a job well done from the team from GB. Growing partnership. Taking in the feedback and moving on after posting 44.4 for their second effort. On to Luana Lira and Ana Santos. Divers 5 of 6 in this women's 3-meter synchronized final.
Again, really nice synchronization from these two. Tight legs, tight toes. All very critical parts of the dive. Looking forward to seeing some of their more difficult dives.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's a nice way to get started. You almost extend your practice session, your training into the competition with these compulsory dives with the 2.0 degree of difficulty. And maybe you get a little bit of confidence in the environment under those competition conditions.
Absolutely, and then the more difficult dives begin, and that's where we get to see how truly good the synchronization is.
And we close out this compulsory phase with the Canadian pairing of Verlam and Valet, leaders after round 1. Reverse dive, pike position.
Really nice work, very nicely executed. They take their time before they go, making sure they're on the right track, same pace. A little bit of different come-outs of the dive, but still nice entries. They're our top 2 springboard girls in Canada, so they're doing great. Really great synchro pair.
Execution scores a little higher on synchronization. Mia with a bit of a reaction on her face there as she takes it all in. And we see even at the top with the 2 Canadians. A reminder, only 1 NOC spot on the podium for nation. So we've got a battle for top spot, but it's very early. Battle for the Canadian place on the podium, but again, 3 dives to come for each of these quality teams. And it starts to get a little more interesting now with the degree of difficulty picking up.
The more difficult dives begin.
Go from 2.0 to 3.0 on this inward 2.5 pike for Rosman and Koloy. Looking to pick it up a little bit after a slightly slow start by their standards, I would think.
I mean, for the 3rd time in a row, they've shown us really great synchronization. The back and the inward positions are really difficult because you have to have the exact same timing with those bounces before you even get off the board. Nice tight pikes, just a little bit of over rotation, not too much.
Execution scores ranging from 4.5 to 7.5. Synchronization, a couple of 7.5s there for the Aussie duo. Brings us to the Americans. Whitty and Sturgill, third spot after the opening 2 rounds. Their degree of difficulty here, 2.7, inward 2.5, tuck.
It's not unusual to see the younger junior athletes still competing those, you know, a little bit easier dives, the inward 2.5 tucks, not the pikes. But when they start in this international, you know, Grand Prix, they're going to start doing those bigger pike dives.
So they would probably be practicing some of those next level dives in non-competition environments, but knowing that that's coming not too far down the road.
Yes, and then if they're able to compete them still in their junior career, that's very impressive.
Sorting through the feedback there. Execution scores, synchronized scores. Look at that, all the way up to an 8 on that part of the equation for Whitty and Sturgill of the United States. Well, the Canadians jostling for top spot, including this pairing of Pamela Ware and Amy Wilson. Forward 3.5, pike position.
This was the highest DD of this whole event with 3.1, and they executed that very nicely. This is not an easy dive to do. You need to get the height, you need to get the spin, and it's very easy to, on your takeoff right off the board, not get your height because you're too worried about your rotation. Amy and Pamela did not do that. They took their time. They did a really nice job.
You talked about the importance of patience, letting the board take you where you need to go, and they got it started in the right way, didn't they?
They absolutely did. That was really cool to see.
Look at the synchronization, some good numbers there, and some satisfied Canadian competitors soaking it all in. From a 3.1 degree of difficulty to a 2.8 on the back 2.5 tuck for the combination of Cuddy and Eaglestone.
Too difficult of a dive. They both leaned back a tiny bit off the board on their takeoff, more focused on the rotation than the actual height of the dive, which then led them to go a slightly bit over.
So you want the board to take you up, you don't want your shoulders to pull you away.
Yeah, exactly. You want to stand up, you want your fingers to go to the ceiling, and then focus on your rotation.
And they're getting some of that information now, I would assume. Synchronization, higher of the scores between that and execution as they get some insight as to their effort.
It's all a learning experience.
Never stops. And we continue forward to Luana Lira, Anna Santos. Anna taking part in the mixed synchro earlier today with Rafael Fogassa. Inward 2.5 tuck.
We saw a little bit more height from one of the girls, but you know what? They still landed in the water at almost the same time, just a bit of splash.
Quite a height difference in the two competitors, with Anna being quite tall.
Yes, and the jump changes a lot too, how high each athlete goes.
Synchronization, their strength on that one. And all of a sudden, we're on to team 6 of 6 in round number 3 of 5. Co-leaders heading into the round. Mia Valle, Margot Erla. Mia on the left, Margot on the right. Inward 2.5, pike.
Very nice entry from both Mia and Margot. Inward 2.5 pike is not the easiest dive to do. There's a lot of timing between coming off the board, your height, where your legs are in comparison to the board. Not perfect synchronization, but still landing in the water at the same time with a really nice entry.
3.0, the degree of difficulty there after the 2.0 cap on the opening 2 dives. And they score 64.80 this time around on that inward 2.5 pike. So where do things stand after 3 rounds, you ask? Here is the information you need to know. A slight edge now for Ware and Wilson over the other Canadian duo. Rosman Koloy sitting in 3rd. Whitty and Sturgill, United States, in the 4th position. It's a good battle going on for those places on the podium.
And when we get into those more difficult dives, that's where we see things start to happen in the results.
So a little bit of the shape of the field taking shape as we advance now to round 4. Second to the last round. The Aussie duo of Rosman and Koloy get us going with the front 2.5 with a twist, pike position.
Consistency is really key when it comes to diving, and these two have been consistent through all 4 rounds thus far.
Yeah, you can see them getting better and better here.
Their hurdle dives so far have really been their best work. Very strong divers and really strong in the synchronization.
I mentioned it earlier, Alicia, 4-time Grand Prix medalist. Kate's got Grand Prix results going back 7 years now, and that's a good looking effort there with those synchronized scores, very impressive. And Rosman and Koloy using that consistency to their advantage.
Bailey was able to recover her dive, which is not an easy thing to do. Not getting the hurdle even close to what she wanted. She managed, though. That is not an easy thing to do.
She really had to work there, almost off the board with her right foot.
And it's really difficult to balk when you're doing synchro because you have to let your partner know, and they're not prepared for that. So it was really impressive that she managed to get that off the board.
Talk about the athleticism of this sport, to be able to make an adjustment like that on the spur of the moment. That is quite impressive. I know she won't be pleased with it, but it does say something about her abilities to pull that out.
Very much so.
There are the scores, reflective of the difficulty she had, but it's one of those things that make for a good story later when you're reflecting on the day.
Yeah, and even in the future for her improvement.
Yeah. So on to the combo of Ware and Wilson. Canadians in that top position. Back 2.5, pike. Here in round 4 of 5.
Well, Pam and Amy have been very consistent through this whole event. A beautiful back 2.5 pike from both of them. Really nice entries. They're a really great pair. Very synchronized, very nicely executed.
Pamela Ware had some difficulty at the Olympics last year and showed an incredible spirit coming out of it, just talking about everything being a learning experience and the process being more important than any particular outcome, and not letting the specific incident or one dive change her perspective on herself or her plans in the sport. And I thought she really set a tone for others, and maybe that's carrying over, helping her moving forward, but also her teammates to see, you know, a way to handle adversity.
I think so. It's a very difficult thing to overcome what Pamela did, and it shows a lot of growth and experience.
Finished 18th in Tokyo in the 3 meters. Back to the action here. And we see Cuddy and Eaglestone with a reverse 2.5 tuck.
You can see Maya just jumps a little bit higher on the board, giving her a little bit more height on that takeoff. They still come out around the same time, landing in the water. They're still so young, and I think they'll be a really great 3-meter synchro pair.
They're young, but they've got a lot of experience, and you can almost tell by their reactions that they're hungry. They're really pushing. They want those results. They know they've got it in them, and that's inspiring.
It's very inspiring.
All right, on to the Brazilian pairing of Lira and Santos, ranked 5th after the previous round. It's a back 2.5 somersault, the tuck on the way.
Just a little bit of an early come out, creating that splash, not waiting until seeing that secondary spot.
There's Luana 21st in the 3-meter at Tokyo. There's Anna getting the feedback, considering what adjustments she will make next time around.
Yes, hopefully just waiting a second longer for that come out.
Sometimes it's hard
Luana
to have that.
Really nice entry.
You wait for it just to make sure that the soup is ready. Another way of looking at it. All right, so speaking of another way of looking at it, these guys getting a different perspective here with the camera on the board. Erlam and Valet, back 2.5 somersault, pike.
Really nice. Mia and Margot are so strong. They're very strong. They are very powerful. It's been really nice and neat to see them come into their diving over the last few years. Margot moving to Saskatoon and working with Mary Carroll, and she has improved so much. Mia in Miami with Randy, they always had so much potential, and now it's coming through.
Margot from Calgary, but making the decision to go to Saskatoon and continue her career with the veteran Mary Carroll. And Mary's got that reputation. You see her there, just such a good communicator, infectious spirit, good energy, and she seems to really have made a difference for Margot. And look at that now as we see Erlam and Valet edging into that top position, followed by Rosman and Colloy, Cuddy and Eaglestone, the top 4. There's only room for one Canadian duo on that podium, so everything falling in behind is of utmost importance as we get you ready for the 5th and final round. Women's 3-meter synchro finals, the final of the 3 synchro finals on the opening day of final events here at the MNP Community and Sports Center. Coming up still, the men's 3-meter final, women's 10-meter final to close out the Saturday program. Back 2.5, pike position.
Well, these two have done perfect synchronization throughout this whole event. Not the best entry for these girls at the end, but you know what? Their synchronization has been on point. Just need to improve their entries the tiniest bit on this dive, but really nice diving from them.
Just 20 years of age, these two competitors. similar phases in their career, and wrapping it up with highs of 6.5 for execution and 7 for synchronization. They'll bring in 276 and change. Good effort from Colloy and Rosman. To the American representatives, it's Whitty and Sturgill. Whitty, the elder of the pairing at 17, out of Michigan. Ohio, the home state for Bailey Sturgill. These guys looking to finish strong. Back 2.5, tuck position.
Very nice. That was a really good comeback for Bailey.
That shows a lot of skill, a lot of moxie to be able to get back on track, blank the slate.
Just proving to the judges, the coaches, everyone else here that she's able to push that last dive to the side, move on, and execute this dive really nicely. That was some really nice synchro from these two.
I mean, let's face it, everybody's going to make mistakes. It's a matter of it not leading to other mistakes, right?
Yes.
Great job by the American combination. Execution with a high of 7. Synchronization goes a little bit better than that. And some valuable experience gained in an international environment.
Very exciting for these two young girls.
Battle for top spot features a couple of Canadian teams, including Pamela Ware and Amy Wilson. Again, Wilson in her hometown of Calgary. Forward 2.5 with a twist. Pike position to wrap it up.
Beautiful entry from both Amy and Pam. A lot of focus in this dive. Slightly different times coming off the board, which changes the whole dive, but they still ended up in the water at the same time. Really nice dive from both girls. They look happy.
And the results worth smiling about. Look at that execution all the way up to 7.5. You get into 8 on synchronization, and the veteran Pamela Ware looks like she's taking it in stride. Had some fun up there.
We're seeing the forward 2.5 somersault full twist from the last 3 pairs of this event.
4th place heading into the final round.
Nice work from these girls. Just slightly different techniques in their hurdle, but you know what? Still such a difficult dive to execute, and they did really nicely. It's really nice to watch the younger uppercomers
take on those dives. Yeah. Forward 2.5 with a twist, pike position. And it adds up to just under 55 for Cuddy and Eaglestone, who landed 250.50. So it brings us to the 5th of the 6 combos competing here. The Brazilians in 5th. As you mentioned, forward 2.5 with a twist. Pike once again.
just a tiny bit short on that entry, meaning that they didn't land in that straight up and down position. Still, both Anna and Luana, very strong divers.
See the height off the board to get it started, and that power shining through. The execution numbers a little on the low side, the synchronization solid. Important experience for Santos and more for the veteran Lira. And that brings us now to the final dive of the competition, Erlam and Valet. Top spot heading in, 66.06. 7.5s, what they're looking for here.
Some pressure as only one Canadian pair can make the podium. Some healthy competition between the 4 Canadian girls.
That's what it's all about, getting into these environments, putting yourselves in these positions to experience that type of pressure.
That was a really nice dive from both girls. Synchronization right there. Really nice entry from Mia. Same with Margot. That was some really nice synchronization from Mia and Margot throughout this whole event. Very consistent diving.
Marlo's got a birthday coming up in a couple of days. She had a gold medal performance in the mixed synchro. And she's going to add to that today with a tremendous performance here. That final dive, lifting them into the top position. Erlam and Valet edging out their Canadian rivals in Ware and Wilson. Rosman Colloy of Australia next, followed by Cuddy and Eaglestone. And we talked about the importance of this level of diving, getting into the international environment, getting up against these quality competitors, especially now coming out of the last couple of years, and putting yourself in situations where you've got to execute, where there's something on the line. So valuable, it means so much to these young athletes, and what a job by Erlam and Valet to end up in that top position.
That was a very exciting event, and we saw a lot of consistency with the synchronization from all 5 pairs, all 6 pairs, sorry.
Not much separating the top 2. The Aussies in that consistency, putting them in a kind of a spot on their own in the middle of that grouping. And we see a lot of people smiling after that. A good show to close out the synchronized events on the day. Was Canada taking the top spot in the mixed synchro and in the men's 10-meter synchro. And they wrap it up in the 3-meter synchro with a strong showing as well. So good start for Canada on the day. Lots more to come. We'll have the men's 3-meter final at 4:10 local time. So long till then.